What if I told you that there was a Fortnite player who was only 14 years old but still outsmarted everyone? A player who qualified for the Fortnite World Cup 4 times, won the solo DreamHack in Anaheim, and even won a game on Fortnite's biggest stage, all while using his brain to destroy everyone. This player is the kid with 200 IQ, MrSavage. And to find out how he used his intelligence to succeed, we have to go all the way back to Norway on November 12th, 2004. Martin MrSavage Foss Anderson was raised by his parents Johnny and Solfrid alongside his older brother Michael. You see, Martin was a normal kid and had a fairly good upbringing. He attended a Montessori school, which, for those of you who don't know what it is, it provides the kids with learning about their interests rather than formal teaching. At a young age, he and his brother would play football together, but then MrSavage found a passion for video games. He spent hours playing CSGO, Ark Survival, H1Z1, and even FIFA. This would be his first taste of video games, and he loved it, especially CSGO, where he found his newfound love for playing competitive video games. His brother, on the other hand, played video games with him, but what some of you don't know is he's actually an amateur football player that plays in Norway's 4th tier for Ullern If2. Before he went amateur in football, he introduced Martin to a video game that some of you may know, and it's called Fortnite. Michael didn't know it yet, but through that one decision to introduce his little brother to the game, he created Fortnite's smartest player. In late 2017, MrSavage hopped on Fortnite to play some games with his older brother. Like most people at the time, he fell in love with the game. He quickly grew better than his older brother, and in fact, he was so good at the game, he won almost every game he played. His brother told him that he was way too good at the game and should be posting his video gameplay online. This is where he would post his first ever YouTube video on March 22nd, 2018, titled Fortnite 286 meter jumping no scope with hunting rifle. And well, it was exactly that.
No scope. No scope.
He would go on to post a few more of these short clips until he started posting some of his gameplay highlights. May 11th, 2018, he began streaming on Twitch, where he would consistently go live for the first few weeks. But then he stopped going live as much and he focused on putting more hours into getting better at Fortnite. Now, it would be like this for a few months until November 2018 came, when his highlight videos of him dominating lobbies on YouTube began to pick up traction as people saw how smart and skilled MrSavage was. With that newfound success over on YouTube, he began streaming more and more and started to average over 100 viewers. But he wouldn't hold 100 viewers for long. He would actually start to exponentially grow. By December 9th, 2018, he had already hit 100,000 followers and averaged 3,000 viewers. This was some crazy growth, and it was due to him showcasing how good he was at the game, but it wasn't just the skill, it was his brain. Everyone loved watching him for how smart he was, constantly outplaying his opponents. On December 11th, 2018, the very first edition of the Winter Royale was being held. The only problem was you had to be 16 years or older to compete for the prize pool. MrSavage at the time was only, you guessed it, 14. But then he was disqualified for breaking the rules. This would be the first obstacle in the way of MrSavage's Fortnite career. He would have to wait 2 years until he could start competing. While 2018 came to a close, MrSavage's growth didn't. But then he made a decision that he wouldn't ever forget. January 31st, 2019, Energy Esports came knocking at the young MrSavage's door, and he decided to join them. This was a major step in MrSavage's career because now he was signed to one of the biggest organizations in the world and could really take advantage of that. And well, he did. Consistently streaming and posting content over on his YouTube, MrSavage was becoming a household name in the Fortnite scene. He blew up, averaging over 5,000 viewers, and was all over some of those Fortnite highlight channels as being one of the youngest and smartest players in the game. If MrSavage's career wasn't already set, the next announcement would change his life forever. In February 2019, Epic Games announced the Fortnite World Cup, a groundbreaking $30 million tournament ranging across solos and duos that anyone could play in. While they announced the Fortnite World Cup, they also lowered the age limit to compete to 13 years old. That meant MrSavage could compete in future Fortnite tournaments without having to worry about being disqualified for being too young. Immediately, he started working even harder than he was, as all he wanted to do was qualify for both solos and duos in the Fortnite World Cup. He was so excited by the fact that he would be able to play in his first LAN and solidify himself as a top competitor in the world. But the only challenge in his way is he had to actually qualify. And he wouldn't be able to do this alone either. He needed to find someone who could be his partner in crime, so he could qualify for duos, as a big chunk of the tournaments were in the duo format. This is where he went searching and found Benji Fishy. They immediately clicked, and when I mean clicked, I mean clicked. In the very first tournament they could play together, they earned $250. That was good, but not good enough. They would go on to practice and get better and better just in time for the Fortnite World Cup qualifiers. Before the qualifiers, there was the World Cup warm-up event, and they actually went on to win it, earning $2,500. So going into the Fortnite World Cup, Savage and Benji were seen as the best duo on the region by far. Now, it's cool to be expected to do good, but with all that pressure, the only thing that matters is if you can perform at the highest level. And well, in week 2 of the Fortnite World Cup qualifiers, they ended up placing first, punching their ticket to New York to compete for $30 million. But even with all that success, he wouldn't be Fortnite's smartest player if he couldn't qualify in solos. So in the upcoming weeks, he grinded even harder to make sure he could qualify for both solos and duos. And it wasn't going to be easy either. In the following week 3, he would fail to qualify. So going into week 5, MrSavage wasn't performing as his usual self, but he decided to take matters into his own hands. And while tearing up the lobby, MrSavage would make a play that would leave everyone watching speechless.
How 8 elims this game, they've got to go up the side of a mountain, and it's shadow bomb time. Look at how awkward this is. He's getting completely blocked that out. He's deciding to take storm damage.
Yes.
MrSavage! Oh my God!
You did not!
Oh my God! Oh!
He would go on to qualify and show the world how smart he was. Then, after qualifying for both solos and duos early, him and Benji would go on to qualify 2 more times and secure the extra prize winnings. Now, everyone was wondering how he did that, and well, I figured it out how. He actually subscribed to me on YouTube. Yeah, I know, crazy. You guys should do it too. Anyways, all Benji and Savage were focused on was the World Cup finals in New York. They grinded super hard and put months of effort into coming up with strategies and playing scrims, and they were ready to shock the world. It was July 28th, 2019, and Savage and Benji packed their bags and flew all the way across the world from Norway to New York to play in the World Cup finals. Savage had one goal in mind, and it was to make his first LAN event a good one. He wanted to win to prove he was one of the Fortnite greats, but things didn't unfold how he wanted to. With all the pressure on his shoulders and being such a fan favorite, MrSavage would go on to place 29th in solos and 14th in duos. You see, these placements aren't even that bad, but in the Fortnite World Cup, the prize distribution was heavily focused on the top 20% of the teams, so MrSavage made $100,000, which was the same amount of money if you placed dead last in both solos and duos. Now, that's a lot of money, but for Savage, all he wanted to do was win the LAN tournament and lift the Fortnite World Cup like Booga did that weekend. So the second the tournament was over and he got home, the streams continued and the grind restarted, this time in full effect. Fortnite announced the new competitive tournament for the season, which was the first edition of FNCS, and it was Trio. Surprisingly, he didn't end up playing with Benji, rather he played with Rojo, who got 3rd in the World Cup, and Item, who was a very well-known player in Europe. They would go on to get 7th, securing $6,400, but this wasn't good enough for Savage, and he began to grind even harder. Savage would be glad he grinded so hard, because in the upcoming months, there would be something that would make his dreams come true. Chapter 2 of Fortnite was here, and Savage wouldn't start it too hot. In the squad's FNCS, he didn't even make it to the grand finals. While Benji actually placed 2nd in the grand finals, Savage was sidelined and not happy. People began to ask, was Savage getting washed, and was he even ever that good? And well, he kept grinding super hard and didn't let any of the critics get to his head. Being only 15 years old at the time, he handled the criticism well and was ready for a fresh new year to start. 2020 was here, and MrSavage was ready. In February, he ended up leaving NRG and would sign for 100 Thieves. You see, 100 Thieves signed Savage because they knew how good he was and how good he could be. And it was just in time for the DreamHack Anaheim solo LAN tournament, where he would go on to play out of his mind. And well, even though there isn't much footage of him playing, let's break down what we can. Game 3, MrSavage pulls off a crazy sequence of play and pushes himself into the top 4.
Shot on the Jinx. This is somebody who was pushing him and quickly turns. Oh my God! MrSavage turning it on in the end game. 7 for him. There's a perspective of actually, I believe, Jinx. So we can actually stay in the replay mode if we can. I'm not sure why we're swapping out.
After game 4, we can see him break into first place, and in game 5, he has another good game and holds on to the lead. Now, game 6, he got 0 points, and in game 7, Bizzle ended up winning it, which stole first place from Savage. Now, going to the final game, Bizzle was leading the charge over Savage by 10 points. The tournament was shaping up to be one of the greatest tournaments of all time, and the final game would not disappoint.
Unseen off as he moves forward. 2 seconds. 1, the next beam. And RPG RPG someone, 4 people left, 3 builds, and an RPG to work with.
He has a rainbow loadout, but the question is, does his brain match? As a big explosion comes through, dodges the hype shots. It's Savage versus Benji Fishy, ex-org teammates, 100 Thieves versus NRG on low ground. Well, Honey watches, and Savage says no. It's another chance. He goes for the dive. No mats. Here we go. Odinite dodges the shot. Savage still up top. The 4th shot hits.
And well, Savage would go on to win DreamHack and fulfill his goal of lifting a tournament on a major stage. But what was next for Savage? He was already a superstar, lifted a trophy at LAN, and is set for the rest of his life in terms of a career and wealth. You see, by 2020, MrSavage had already accomplished everything he wanted to do with Fortnite, but there was one thing that he wanted so badly and failed time and time again at achieving this, and that was to win an FNCS title. After DreamHack, MrSavage was on a high, but this dream of winning an FNCS wouldn't come easy. I mean, he literally didn't even qualify to the grand finals that same season. So going into the future FNCS, MrSavage began to grind more than ever. All he wanted to do was achieve the goal of winning an FNCS. Duo FNCS came around and he teamed up with a fellow Norwegian iDrop. They ended up placing pretty well in qualifying to the grand finals, but in the grand finals they got 12th, which wasn't good enough. Then in the solo invitational that same season, he got 15th once again, not performing up to his standards. It seemed impossible for MrSavage to achieve his dream, but he kept trying at it. Chapter 2, Season 3 was solos again, and he was ready to win it like he did back in DreamHack. But 57th wasn't the result he was looking for. But then he formed a God trio in Chapter 2, Season 4, and was ready to go all the way. They even won 1 Cash Cup and placed high in almost every single event that season. But in the grand finals, after being contested, they fell short once again, placing 8th. In Chapter 2, Season 5, he teamed up with Tayson and iDrop, which was another God trio. Tayson at this point had already won 2 times FNCS and was a defending FNCS champion from the season before. But once again, they placed 8th. MrSavage was good and everyone knew he was good, but the only problem was he just wasn't good enough. With good teammates and fairly good drop spots, how wasn't Savage able to win in FNCS, let alone even come top 3 once? His trio disbanded and he was in search of a new one. This time, instead of picking up stars, he would pick up people who meshed well together. And well, they were good. Chapter 2, Season 6 was the primal season that no one liked except for me because I'm weird. But for Savage, he realized that if he put his head down when everyone was complaining about the game and grinded, he could get ahead. This is where he picked up Indretta and Refsgard, 2 established European players who weren't necessarily stars, but were still tier 1 pros at the time. They began the season really shaky, not earning as a trio until the Cash Cup before FNCS began. But during FNCS, they showed up big, getting 6th in week 1 and 2nd in week 2. They easily qualified for the FNCS Grand Finals from the 2nd place finish. Some people thought that since they qualified early, they would be rusty come Grand Finals. But for Savage and his trio, they took the time to analyze everything so that when Grand Finals came, they were prepared to win it all. It was looking like it was going to be Savage's time to finally go ahead and get the precious FNCS pickaxe he wanted. So with that being said, let's break down this Grand Finals. Game 1, they got 6th with 5 eliminations. Game 2, they went on to win the game, putting them up to 1st place. Game 3, they got 6th again. Game 4, they got 9th. And in the last 2 games, they got 16th and 10th. This was just enough to go into day number 2 of the Grand Finals, being on top of the leaderboard by just 1 point. They knew they needed to repeat their day 1 performances if they wanted to close out FNCS. So that was their mentality going into Game 7, where they went down early, but in Game 8, they got 7th, which kept them in the running for FNCS. Game 9, they went big and got a 2nd place. Game 10, they got 6th place, and they were really pushing for the FNCS title. Game 11, they went down early, and going into the last game, FNCS was anyone's game. So Savage and his trio went out and did this.
This may be the opening that they need to be able to catch up right now. Queasy and Jerky are still on their feet, and Queasy's in trouble. Queasy's gonna be taken out, and now Savage and Rapscard with 6 eliminations and the victory out in their sights could win it all right here, right now.
I don't see Trulex fully.
With that 6th place in the final game, everyone took a step back and waited for the final results to see who was the Chapter 2 Season 6 FNCS champions. And as we hold our breath and waited for the leaderboard to reveal, we were disappointed.
For Queasy, Trulex, and Jerky, congratulations, you are this season's FNCS champion.
Absolutely. What a phenomenal.
With another season gone by, and Savage failing yet again, and it seemed as if he lost motivation for the game. Although he didn't win FNCS, getting second was by far his best result. He still wanted to win an FNCS, but when someone grinds hard for the amount of time Savage was grinding, it eventually turns to burnout. You see, Savage was still streaming and placing in tons of cash cups, but for the rest of Chapter 2, he didn't perform well. In Season 7, he got 11th in Grands, and in Season 8, there were 2 FNCSs where he was contested in both of them and placed 23rd and 15th. MrSavage was very good, constantly placing high, but he was never good enough to really push for the FNCS pickaxe. After a decent chapter, it was now time for a fresh start, but what he didn't know was this would be the start of the downfall. Chapter 3 came, and he teamed up with Benji Fishy for the first FNCS of the chapter. In the end, this duo seemed to be a thing of the past as they placed 36th in Grand Finals. In the following season, they got 45th in Grand Finals, and this caused Benji Fishy to retire, leaving Savage duelist. Going into the last season of the chapter, and the last opportunity to qualify for the first Global Lan event, Savage picked up Hen, who was a multiple-time FNCS champ. Now, that season, they didn't really perform well and got 26 in Grands, but they still got invited to the Global FNCS LAN in Raleigh. At the LAN, they got 24th, which is decent, but nothing crazy. Another chapter gone, and Savage didn't even come close to winning an FNCS this time. Savage knew his prime might be over, but he still wouldn't give up on his dream. Chapter 4 came, and so did another 3 FNCSs and a Global Lan event. He began the chapter playing with iDrop. In the first season, he did not do well, placing 32nd, but when he and iDrop split and Savage duoed with Vidil, it looked promising. They went on to get 8th in Grand Finals, which was Savage's first top 10 in over a year. Going into Major 3, they had high hopes to go on and win or at least qualify for the FNCS Global Lan in Denmark at the end of the year, but they didn't do great. They got 43rd, which was terrible. Luckily for them, there was still going to be a last chance major for them to try and sneak into the FNCS Global Lan event, and they didn't take this opportunity for granted. They went on to go crazy, so let's break that down. Game 1, they got 11th place, which is nothing crazy, but then in Game 2, they pulled off a 3rd place, which pushed them up the leaderboard. Game 3, they went on to go down in 19th, but in Game 4, they pulled off an insane win.
Nice to see them on hype overall. Just hold this, but it's cost them so much in terms of mats. Serve on Savage's body. And these guys down below are weak, so he's going to claim.
At this point, they had already secured the qualification to the Global Lan event, but wanted to try and win the whole qualifier. And well, they did. In Game 5, they got 8th, and in the final game, they got 5th. This meant that Savage would be attending another Global Lan event in Copenhagen, which was by far the most hyped event since the beloved World Cup. And well, they did not disappoint. Since they made the LAN from the last chance major, they only had one chance to get top 25 to make the grand finals of the LAN event. So they didn't just get top 25. They won the whole thing, even securing a win in the process.
This is it. These are the moments. Noxy falls. 1v1 situation. Vidil versus Grols. A player who already has a spot versus a player who needs a big win. Grols goes down. Vidil takes him out. But who qualified? That's the question we're asking.
What a well-played fight it was, and Vidil and Savage get a win like we know they should.
It seemed for a moment as we flash back to the kid who was dominating the World Cup scene back in the day. Everyone was so happy for Savage, but in the grand finals, he didn't perform, placing 24th. And with this failure, Savage went back home to Norway to rethink his future. And while he was rethinking his future, the OG season came, and one man came back into the picture. That one man was Mongrel. For some reason, MrSavage had the bright idea of picking up Mongrel to compete for all of 2024. Everyone was shocked. So when Chapter 5 came, no one expected them to do anything, as Mongrel hasn't played the game in years. But they proved everyone wrong. In the first season, they pulled off the perfect script and qualified to FNCS Grand Finals on Europe. But in the first Grand Finals, they were contested and only ended up placing 39th. Now, this duo had potential, and Mongrel was actually getting better as time went on. But in Season 2 of the chapter, they did not make Grand Finals. So for the last FNCS of the chapter, they moved to NA to try to clutch a spot in the Global Championship. They grinded super hard all season and were showing glimpses of greatness. They went on to qualify for the Grand Finals actually pretty easily, and when it came to the Grand Finals, they didn't perform, only placing 28th when they needed top 10 to make the Global Lan event. But now that stirs up a conversation that needs to be had about MrSavage. What was he gonna do in his future? As we've seen, MrSavage's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. From a young kid in Norway to one of Fortnite's brightest stars, his story is one of relentless determination, brilliance, and a drive to be the best. He may have faced countless challenges, near misses, and even moments of doubt, but what sets MrSavage apart apart isn't just his skill, it's his unwavering commitment to the game he loves. But as we close out this chapter on MrSavage's story, it raises an important question. What's next for the 200 IQ prodigy? Has he truly reached his peak, or is there still more greatness to come? Could his best moments be behind him, or is the resurgence waiting just around the corner? Only time will tell if MrSavage can defy the odds once more. But one thing is for sure, we all love MrSavage. If you guys did enjoy this deep dive into MrSavage's career, you could check out this video on the coin flip that won Cooper and Miro $1 million. And as always, stay sharp, stay happy, keep grinding. I'll see you in the next one.